Hello students! Our next project is going to be an animal eye painting. During this presentation, I'm going to show you different types of color wheels, how to read a color wheel, a painting process called underpainting, which is what we're going to use to complete this project. It's basically where you layer paint on top of each other. And we're also going to look at some different examples. So to dive right in, did you know that there are different types of color wheels? I had no idea. But as you can see here, there are 3 different types. There's the first one, RGB, the second one, RYB, and the third one, CMYK. So take a look at those, and I want you to think, which one do you think we are going to be using with paint? If you chose the first one, the RGB, that is incorrect. That color wheel is used for screens. So when we look at a screen, the colors are mixed using a process called additive color mixing, and it's used on monitors like your television, computer, cell phone, so on. This process mixes colors of light to produce the image we see on a screen or other electronic devices. The 3 primary colors of this process are red, green, and blue. So light mixes differently than paint. So the next color wheel we're going to talk about is the CMYK. If you picked this color wheel, you're wrong again. So this is not the one we are going to be using with paint, but this is the color wheel used for printer ink. So the CMYK stands for cyan, which is a type of blue, magenta, which is a type of red, and yellow, which is yellow. Black is the key. So when we're discussing how printers work, they use this color wheel because those are the colors used in the printing process. So a printing press uses dots of ink to make up the image from all of those 4 colors. The key actually means black, which it's called key because it's the main color used to determine the image outcome. If you chose the color wheel that was in the middle, the red, blue, and yellow one, you are correct. So these are the primary colors that we've probably used since kindergarten. So we are going to be learning more about this color wheel and how we can learn how to read it and use it for our paintings. So to dive deeper into the whole how to read a color wheel, it's really interesting because if you know how to view a color wheel, you can make any color. Well, that's bananas. Yeah, any color if you know how to read a color wheel. So I'm going to explain to you the basics of this color wheel. It's pretty simple when you stop and think about it. So here we go. As you can see here, the primary colors are red, yellow, and blue. Any color that you want to create, you can do so by mixing these colors together. These are the only colors you are going to get for your animal eye painting, along with black or white to make them lighter or darker. But these 3 colors can create any other color. So if we look at this color wheel, we can see that in between the red and yellow is orange. That's a secondary color. In between the yellow and blue is green. That's also a secondary color. In between the red and blue is purple or violet, another secondary color. But if you dive deeper into this, if you mix a secondary with a primary, you get a tertiary. It's a tough word, tertiary. So those would be your yellow-green, blue-green, blue-violet, red-orange, yellow-orange. And these are created with just more yellows or more blues in there. So you can create your green and then add more blue to it to make a blue-green. Understanding that all of the colors come from the 3 primary colors will help you in this project. We are looking for kids to be able to mix paint colors to match their photo reference. So if there is a burnt orange color, we want to see if you can create that same burnt orange color. We're also going to be looking at different types of brush techniques to get different textures, but understanding how to create colors is a main focus of this project. This is a handout that will be at your table. This is actually just a cheat sheet for if you're ever confused on how to create a color. So if you're trying to create a orange, look at what primary colors surround the orange. Oh, yellow and red. That tells you what 2 colors you need in order to make orange. Some students will go and get every single color, and they don't need all of those colors. So knowing what color you're going for and what colors are used to create that will help you and save paint. This handout also shows you how to create brown. So brown is actually a very difficult color to make, but by breaking it down into mixing complementary colors, it's actually pretty simple. So from last year, if you remember our color scheme unit, there's a color scheme called complementary. It's any two colors that are directly across from each other on the color wheel. So we have blue and orange, red and green, and yellow and purple. What we have found that students find easiest to make brown is by creating your orange and then adding little bits of blue in there at a time. You can also create orange and then add bits of black. So I recommend trying both blue and or black and see what kind of brown you get and if that's what you're going for. But what is kind of interesting about this is that all of those combinations are the three primary colors. What? Yeah, it's totally crazy. But you've got blue, which is a primary color. Then you add yellow and red together, you get orange. So it's the three primary colors. Same thing with red. You've got the second one, which is red, and then green, which is just blue and yellow, and you get brown again. What? Yeah. So then you've got the third one. You've got yellow, your primary, but then if you add blue and red together, you get purple. Again, that makes brown. But the thing is it's not even amounts of the primary colors. So yes, it is all three, but if you just put a scoop of each one in, you are not going to get brown. That's why we find it's easiest if people make orange and then add blue in, because yellow gets taken over really, really fast. It's a light color. Same thing with white. So if you add colors into yellow or into white, it changes it really fast. So start with orange, then add blue and or black. Now that we've talked about different types of color wheels, we've determined which one we are going to be using. We've talked about how to read a color wheel and how to mix paint. Let's move on to talking about underpainting. This is a painting technique that we are going to be using for our animal eyes. So what is underpainting? Oh, I will tell you. It is where you have a layer of paint for your base and you are going to layer paint on top of it. So the goal with this underpainting is to let that base layer kind of peek through the other colors or textures we put on top. So as you can see here, there is the main layer, and then once that's dried, they drew on with a pencil, which yes, you can see pencil on this. Then that kind of tells you where they need to apply paint at. So with that white furry texture, you can see that the brown undercoat is shining through. And that's what we're wanting. We don't want it to be like really, really thick on top of that. That kind of defeats the whole purpose of underpainting. Underpainting is where you let that base kind of shine through, and it gives it a kind of rich, deep look, and it helps it look realistic. Moving on to looking at some examples. That top left corner is a beautifully done parrot. Wow, look at that base layer shining through. Those feathers look way more realistic because of that underpainting process. They did a nice job mixing some of the oranges and greens and whatnot. But the thing that they would get dinged on is that very bright yellow spot at the top. That looks like they took yellow straight from the bottle and applied it onto their painting. You never want to use paint straight from the bottle. Even if it really actually looks that bright of a yellow, do not do it. It makes your painting look flat. So anytime that you put a color onto your painting, it should be mixed with another color of sorts. I say this with the exception of white. Sometimes you can't apply white straight on there because some of that underpainting will still shine through the white because it's so light, but you never want to use just plain blue, plain red, or plain yellow on your painting. The one on the bottom right is a nice example. They have many different types of greens and blues, browns, yellows. They also had a lot of textures in there, so this is also a nice example. Here are just some more examples. As you can see, everyone's eye is going to look different based on the colors needed and the techniques. Also, everyone has a slightly different style. So these are some pretty nice examples. Here are a couple more. That top left, like chameleon lizard thing, was done very differently than the reptile on the bottom right. So lots of different types of colors and techniques here. Oh my goodness gracious, look at this. This is some sort of cat, and it is done very nicely as well. Lots of variation of colors, very neat and tidy brush techniques, and as you can see, it's a really great result. Now that we've looked at some different examples of nice work done, I want you to take a look at these three. All three of these use the same Animal-Eye photo reference. So these students were working off of the same photo, because yes, there are duplicates, but as you can see, there are different results even if someone has the same photo. So do you think that number 1 is the best, number 2, or number 3? If you thought that number 1 was the best, we need to have a serious conversation. This one is done sloppy. Not a lot of mixing of colors is happening, and the colors that are mixed are not done well. The lighter blues are actually tones. So this will happen when, let's say you try to make a color lighter, and then you are like, oh, it's too light, and you try to make it darker, and you don't wash your brush. You will get a tone, so you're mixing black and white in there, and it will make it look very dull and flat. So if you are gonna change colors, you need to wash your brush. If you thought this one was the best one, I feel like you're just trying to make me mad. This one is overall sloppy. They used a large brush for everything. They did not mix all of their colors. I can tell that blue is straight from the bottle. And I don't even honestly know what I'm looking at. The direction of fur is very sporadic. And it just doesn't really look like they cared about it. So this is not the best one. If you chose this for the best one, we can now be best friends because I trust you and you know what you're talking about. Look at the colors used in this. Oh my gosh, there's so many different types of blues and browns in there. They did that glare in the eye really well. It is a very nicely done work of art. The last thing we're going to talk about are the actual painting steps we're going to be doing to create our Animal-Eye painting. Here we have that step 1, which will be to paint that base layer. This is what we want to shine through. It's the darkest part of your whole painting. It's the color that's behind the fur or scales or feathers. You are then, the next day after it's dried, going to draw the outline of the eye and any like lines or shapes or direction of fur that you see with a pencil. After that, you're going to move on to step 2, 3, and 4 and kind of just dive right in. I usually start with the actual iris color and then I'll work my way outwards, but you will just kind of keep going back over, let's say, your iris, do your burst like the next day, start in on some of the different textures you see based on whatever animal that you choose, and you'll kind of just keep creating colors and layering and using different texture techniques until you get a beautiful result like this one. Wow, you can do this. This was a 7th grader. And if you know how to mix colors and you listen to the different painting techniques that we teach you, you will create a beautiful piece of art like this. The last thing I want to show you, and I know you guys are probably tired of hearing my voice because I've been talking forever, but this is a really great example of going the extra mile. So that one on the left is beautifully done. I would have called this finished, but she went on to clean up that iris, that bursty part in the iris. She put even more colors and textures in the fur, and the results are just amazing. Yes, indeed, a 7th grader did this, and so can you.